Welcome, everybody. Welcome to DTLTtoday.com. I'm Tim Owens.
And I'm Andy Rush.
And we have a special guest today, Charles Shields, the Associate Director of the Great Lives series at Mary Washington. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Maybe I could tell you a little bit about how Great Lives originally started.
That'd be great. And,
sure.
And tell us what the Great Lives series is, because I've only been in Mary Washington a couple of months, and I'm not too familiar with the whole thing. But if you could tell us exactly what it is for Mary Washington.
Okay. Well, Great Lives is a series that's presented every spring semester. Usually consists of about between 16 and 18 biographers and historians talking about the lives of some very well-known and some not so well-known American personalities. For example, this coming season we're having someone talk about Madam C.J. Walker, the first woman to ever build a business around black cosmetics. And we're having much more well-known figures such as Madame Curie and Columbus, Lafayette, a number of other people. So these lectures last about an hour. There's a Q&A afterwards, but there's an important classroom tie-in to this. It's not just a freestanding lecture series for the public. There's a Great Lives class behind it, and mainly history majors take it, in which they explore how biographies are written and the nature of nonfiction, and they learn some academic skills about footnoting and endnoting, that kind of thing. And attending the lectures is mandatory. So it's got a campus component and it's got a public component. But I have to say that there are very, very few biography programs anywhere in the United States.
Sure.
And none that I know of that is as ambitious as Great Lives. Most have a couple of speakers, but we have, as I say, 16 to 18. And some of them are Pulitzer Prize winners, and some of them are National Book Award winners. So it's really quite a panoply of talent in the biography field.
And Andy, you've been working with the group a lot longer in terms of taping. How long does it go back, the whole series? Do you know?
I think the first year that there was a private company that came in to do the tapings, and so I would actually take the tapes and digitize them and put them up. And so back in the day, I think it was 2004 or 2005 was the first series that we put up.
Okay.
And reel video was the technology that we used back then, and there's still some of those that need to be converted from the reel player to more modern technology, let's say.
Well, even if you think about, I mean, back in 2004, the process of putting video online in any format was not simple. You didn't have YouTube. You didn't have those easier ways of just upload and go. So, I mean, for Mary Washington to be, you know, not just recording that content, but also uploading it to the web and distributing it as far back as 2004, I think is pretty wild.
Yeah, and I mean, not to get too inside baseball, but at the time, reel video really was a good and high quality format. Obviously, things changed. We moved to Flash, and currently we're going to move to more of an MPEG-4 style, so that these videos can be shown not only on web pages but also on devices like the iPad and Android and the iPhone. So
yeah, and just to expand on the development in technology, this is going to allow us to take Great Lives national. I mean, one of my aims in connection with the Great Lives program is to bring it to national prominence, because it has worked so well here in Fredericksburg that this is a great focus group of what people would probably like to see everywhere.
Yeah.
So I would really like to see University of Mary Washington become kind of the Chautauqua of biography, and that become part of, another one of the university's strengths is that we are known for bringing these speakers to campus and making these videos available, and perhaps even teaching materials available so that teachers can use our lectures in the classroom.
It's always been a great resource that I've felt like could be out there more and could be repurposed in so many different ways, and have all ages from college age down through elementary to kind of be exposed to these people, at least kind of know who they are, and even short blurbs of I always think of my wife who teaches some of the Great Lives in whatever grade, they always talk about the Jackie Robinsons and that sort of thing are the ones in second grade. And, for kids to be more exposed to the names and that sort of thing is very important for them. So.
Right. Well, one of the speakers, as I said earlier, this year is going to be Lauren Redness, who was just nominated for a National Book Award for her graphic biography of Pierre and Madame Curie. And visually, it's just a stunning book, besides being historically absolutely accurate. And imagine if in a 7th grade science class you could see this very engaging young person talk about her book and show slides from the pages.
Exactly.
I think it's a wonderful asset.
Yeah, and Mayor Washington's lucky to have you on this project because you are thinking about the social media aspect and the promotion aspect. And I think a lot of that is because you're an author. You've got a book coming out November 8th on Kurt Vonnegut.
Yes.
That's right. So the book is And So It Goes, Kurt Vonnegut, A Life. And you actually have been blogging about that process on your website, writingkurtvonnegut.com. And it's been kind of interesting to read about how you became, interested in Kurt Vonnegut and the book, and your process as an author of figuring out these social media aspects.
Right. Yeah. In fact, the blog I just had posted this past Saturday was all about learning to make a book trailer and learning to use social media, and this transformation from when I did my first biography in 2006 of Harper Lee. And at that time it was considered cutting edge, to send out a book to book blogs and say, would you like to review my book? And that was considered very vanguardish, And now authors are taking on a big part of the marketing of getting their books out there. And as I often tell people, anything that's made for consumers at large, you can learn. I mean, YouTube and things like that, you may think, how do people ever get technically savvy enough? It's just not that difficult. There's no longer the great geek humanities divide that there was at one time.
Right.
Now you can write a really good essay for your blog, post it on a WordPress platform or something like that, and engage in a conversation with readers.
So what have you learned kind of with your immersion into WordPress and to the new media, the kind of the rich publishing platforms that you've been exposed to?
It gives you immediate feedback on what interests people. I mean, for a long time, for centuries, authors have been working in a room, possibly for years, hoping that what they're working on is appealing. And now I get almost immediate feedback. I can go to the dashboard of my blog and see that 150 people read this post today. That must be very interesting. And I see that it's being brooded about through Twitter and things like that. So I know this is a winner. This is something that people want to know more about. And then maybe the next time I do something maybe a little more academic, something that's just interesting to scholars, my numbers go like this. So
do you find yourself like gearing your message towards your audience?
I'm becoming my own pollster. As a writer now, I'm doing these, as I say, focus groups on what seems to be interesting and what sells.
So speaking of some of the posts that may have had more of the attractiveness to them, tell me a little bit about one of my favorite stories, the beer baron in Kurt Vonnegut's life.
Yeah, well, Kurt Vonnegut, the Indiana author of Slaughterhouse-Five and Cat's Cradle, was descended from German merchants who, the first one who came over was kind of a rabble-rouser. In 1848, he was part of the German Republic movement and was summarily thrown out as a student. And he came over to the United States and opened up a hardware store, because at that time Indianapolis was pretty far west, and people would load up their wagons and things for the big trip down to St. Louis before they went out into the wilderness. And the Vonneguts had a real talent for the mercantile life, for selling. They went into candy making, overall making, coffin making. The hardware store expanded. In fact, it was a Vonnegut who invented the crash bar that you hit on doors and makes the door open during a fire. So they made a pretty good buck as merchants, and Kurt's father was an upper middle class architect who designed homes and businesses in Indianapolis. So Kurt was a bit of a departure from that. The beer comes in on his mother's side, because his mother was a Lieber, and the Liebers owned one of the largest beer manufacturers in the Midwest, the Indianapolis Beer Company. In fact, they won a gold medal for their beer, and their secret ingredient, don't touch this between us.
All right.
Their secret ingredient was a pinch of coffee in the brew.
Coffee.
Gave it real body.
Nice.
Okay? And that's why they won a gold medal.
Yeah.
So Kurt,
Sounds atrocious.
No, it sounds good to me.
yeah, it's a dark beer, you know, and it keeps
What time
you
is
up.
it?
Yeah, it keeps you up. So anyway, we've got beer and hardware coming together to create Kurt Vonnegut, the postmodernist author who was traumatized by the bombing of Dresden and wrote about it in Slaughterhouse-Five.
So, how did you get the idea or the desire to write about Kurt Vonnegut?
Well, I was in college in the late 60s, and all of us were carrying around Kurt Vonnegut in our back pocket, and I read a number of his novels back then, too. But it wasn't clear to me, you know, at my age now, where he fit into the canon.
Okay.
And when I met him and when I talked to him, he was still a little bit resentful, I guess you'd say, about the fact that he was written off as a sci-fi author or sort of a cult author,
Yeah.
and he never felt that he, you know, got the kind of recognition that his books deserved. So it became my goal in writing this biography to find out what is behind the Kurt Vonnegut phenomenon. Why does it seem to be a rite of passage among a lot of bright kids to somewhere along the line read Kurt Vonnegut? Did he make a major contribution to American literature? And who's the guy behind the books? You know, he's known as a humanist and a pacifist. Do his values really jive with that kind of thing?
And I was surprised to see on your website, this is the first biography of Kurt Vonnegut?
Yeah, Kurt
Out
was
there.
Kurt was a little miffed that nobody had ever written a biography of him before. He thought, what do you have to do to get a good drink around here, so to speak? You have 14 novels in print, and yet, and he had been writing by his death in 2007. He'd been writing for 52 years,
Right.
and yet no one had done anything except talk about his life in the first few pages of a book about his novels. But there was nothing about his life per se.
Okay.
And he just opened up. First time we went to lunch, boy, he just started talking about growing up as a boy and what his dad was like, and it was fascinating, and it was all fresh.
Now, where did this interview take place?
I went out to New York a number of times to talk to him out there.
Okay.
And Kurt was also one for calling me late at night after he had had a couple.
Yeah.
And, you know, how's my biography coming? And so we just started to talk, but I found I had to go out to New York to really interview him because a lot of what we were doing on the phone was just shooting the breeze.
Sure.
You know, in fact, I was one of the last people to see him live.
Wow.
I was at his house on March 13th, 2007. Interviewed him for a couple of hours, and I could see he was getting tired. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I asked him, "Kurt, do you believe in God?" And he said, "Well, I don't know, but who couldn't?" And so I left. An hour and a half later, he was walking his dog out the front door, tripped on the leash, fell down the stairs, and hit his face on the sidewalk and went into a coma.
Wow. It's unreal.
Yeah. And in a letter in 1975 that I have, he wrote to his wife, he said, "You know, I don't know why I think this, but he said, I'm convinced I'm going to be killed by a dog."
Is that
Really?
is that the old dyslexic joke about, you know, God and dog and wondering?
You know?
You know.
Well, I'll have to wait to ask him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've got a couple of websites. It's writingkurtvonnegut.com, and also you have a new one. Is it CharlesJShields.com?
CharlesJShields.com, right. And after the Vonnegut book comes out November 8th, I'm going to pretty much leave the Vonnegut blog the way it is. There's about 40 posts on there, and I'm going to start talking about, well, my experiences on the road as a biographer, my work here, a little more about Harper Lee. So it'll just be a broader website about what I do.
Okay.
Well, the book comes out November 8th, and it's available, I saw, at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, doing the Kindle and stuff like that as well.
It's going to be a recorded book.
It's everything. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. So make sure to check that out on the website, writingkurtvonnegut.com. Thanks so much for joining
Yeah,
us.
thank you
Thanks,
very
it was
much.
a pleasure, guys.
Yeah,
All right.
this has been great.
And thank you for watching DTLT today. We'll see y'all again.
See you, folks.
Bye.